for Amazon Web Services. And in my day job, I'm primarily working with Web3 and crypto customers. This is a really fast-growing business in Vietnam, which is the home of Axie Infinity. So, when I first heard about this event, I was thinking, this is something that I myself would want to sit in on as an audience member. And I think we're really fortunate that we have Justin and Gilbert here. So, for Justin and Gilbert, please think of this as an opportunity to convince me to go from, a big tech company in Web 2 to Web 3. And Justin, can you tell us about yourself? What'd you do before Web 3 and how did you get interested in Web 3?
All right, so good evening, everybody. I'm Justin. So before Web3, I was, a year ago, I wrote my first line of code. So before that, I was in the fitness industry as a fitness trainer. So I was in the fitness industry for about 8 years. Then the pandemic happened, decided to make a career switch, wrote my first line of code 1 year ago, 3 months of learning, 3 months with General Assembly as a teaching assistant, 5 months as a software engineer at an AI startup, and then currently I'm with HawkLabs as a blockchain developer. Yeah, so that's my 1 year journey from 0 to 3.
And tell us about the company you're at.
HawkLabs. So we are a DeFi protocol on the Solana network. So what we do is you can think of, if you want to stake your token, let's say you want to stake your USDC for yield, you will take a USDC and put it into some liquidity pool like USDC, USDT. In exchange, you'll get this LP token. You can further stake this LP token on another protocol such as Query Mine to get more yield. So all these are possible. What we do is we provide one-click solution. One click, pop, everything do it for you. So instead of clicking like 10, 15 steps, we provide a one-click solution.
Okay, awesome. Gilbert?
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Gilbert. I'm the CEO and founder of 0x Friends. Prior to the current Web3 startup, I was CTO and co-founder at a podcasting startup called Shuffle. And before that, I spent 6 years at Google US and Google Singapore as a software engineer, working on projects like YouTube Music and Google Play. So currently, as I mentioned, I'm leading the 0x Friends project. And the goal of this project is to help Web3 natives meet and connect with others individually in their respective Web3 communities. And the way it works is pretty simple. Every week, our platform will match a user with someone else on the platform. More specifically, match based on the social tokens or NFTs that the person has in their wallet. So if this user owns a Bored Ape, we'll match them with another user that owns a Bored Ape. And in this way, and then we encourage them to set up the time to call and to have a conversation. And in this way, we try to get people within the same community to participate in the community, to discuss things in the community, and in general to engage and build connections in Web3.
Okay, and I guess I have a lot of questions for you since you were coming from Google. When did you first learn about crypto and Web3?
So my first exposure to Bitcoin was a long time ago, back all the way, I think actually around 10 years ago. Unfortunately, I even have an email thread to prove it. I called it a fad and I told my friend never to invest in it. And that was probably a bit of a mistake on my end. Thankfully, I continued. I started learning a bit more about crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum around 2015, 2016. But the really deep dive came last year. At the end of my last startup, I started catching up with what's happening in the Web3 space, started understanding and seeing a lot more, seeing what was happening with DAOs, with NFTs, with DeFi, GameFi, and the amount of activities that was going on in this space was overwhelming. But it was also overwhelming in a good way because it felt like there was a certain paradigm shift. So I felt that if there was a paradigm shift, then there are going to be new opportunities. And I wanted to take a stab at looking at some problems in the space, identifying some problems, and see if I can solve them.
Okay, so you mentioned a paradigm shift, and I think you and I are probably thinking, oh, we're late to the game. But for the people that still haven't figured out what's going on, how do you explain to people like, say, your parents, what you're doing? Do they understand what you're doing? That, you know, why you might have left Google to pursue this new paradigm shift, this new trend?
I don't know if my parents will ever understand what I'm doing. So, but I think what I tell my friends is that you know, for the longest time, the internet has lacked a way to transfer money or just any kind of property or any kind of value in an efficient way. And in fact, like a lot of, you know, a lot of fintech unicorns are really just, you know, you think about Square, you think about Plaid and all these US fintech giants. They are these companies who are basically patching up and trying to build this financial network on top of some existing infrastructure that's been around for 30 years. And simply by doing it in the US and focusing on a very small piece of that financial infrastructure, they're already worth billions of dollars. I think what Web3 is coming in is saying, wait a second, like that the existing financial infrastructure and the way we send and transfer value around is extremely old and doesn't really fit the internet paradigms. What if there was a decentralized way to do this for anyone in the world, not just folks in the US or Europe, but anybody who has an internet connection, right? What can that enable? And I think maybe 10 years ago, you saw Bitcoin, which is really just about transferring money, right? But increasingly, you're seeing things like DAOs and NFTs, where we're not just transferring money now, we're transferring value, transferring ownership in a way that's decentralized, in a way that anybody can access and own. And I think it's going to be a huge shift for the industry in the upcoming 5 to 10 years.
Okay, and tell us more about your process when you were thinking about leaving Google. Were you worried?
I think for me personally, I focus a lot more on. I think I focus a lot. I try to focus a lot more on kind of long-term growth and trying to find a space where I can learn quickly and trying to find and for a long time. And in fact, I think that's what I was not feeling when I was in a large corporation. Was I felt like things are really getting slower and slower, whereas something like Web3 is the opposite. Like every day there is something happening, different projects, different kind of news going on in the industry, and I think there's a lot to learn in the space. There's a lot happening, and that really makes it a lot more exciting on whether it's on a day-to-day basis or whether I'm thinking long-term on a career. Okay.
And so we've got, it looks like 30 plus people here. I imagine some are at big companies, some are at startups. If you're thinking about going from a larger company to Web3, you know, what are some expectations people should have? Because it seems like the gold rush from a few months ago, the markets have died down. What kind of compensation can people expect?
I can't really speak compensation wise in terms of, because the market was so crazy in the last 6 months. I've heard the numbers, the range is too large, so I don't really know what people can expect. But I do think that I think in general, I would advise people to think a bit longer term and not get too fixated on how much tokens they're getting right at this moment, or how much value in the token they're getting right now, and really focus more around like asking yourself questions like, okay, what are the things in this space that you're passionate about? What do you think you can learn a lot from, right? And start diving deeper into that, because the reality is, a token that looks great today may not look so great tomorrow. And I think being too fixated, I think, financially on the short term might backfire for a lot of people.
Okay, great. Let me shift back to Justin. Justin, it sounds like you have a really cool background, and you got up to speed as a developer very quickly. For the non-tech people in the audience, can you tell us what kind of resources did you use to get up to speed, especially on the Web3 side?
Sure. So for the Web3 side, I would highly recommend checking out for Solana. I started out with a platform called Build Space. Actually, the team at MetaCamp also backstory a little bit. So I co-founded a company called MetaCamp. So the goal of this the company is to inspire and to support and help non-technical individuals or Web2 developer make that shift into the Web3 space. So we actually curated a really good list of resources. It's completely free. In fact, we actually got, we just found out yesterday that we got sort of like featured on Solana official, the upcoming HawkLabs, hackathon. So I highly recommend you guys to go and check it out. Everything that I learned, pretty much I paste everything there. I put everything, all the resources are all there. So I highly recommend you guys to check out that Notion page. Yeah, sure. I'll send a link. Send a link over there. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I.
And were you aware of crypto and Web3 as you were getting started?
No. So a year ago, I wrote my first line of code. After seven months of coding, 3 + 3 + 2, so you get, so about 8 months of coding. Someone invited me to Solana HawkLabs, and honestly, I got no idea what is blockchain, what is Ethereum. So but I just follow my friend along. So went to an event, learned a little bit about what Solana blockchain is, sort of got pretty excited about it because I like the idea that even the most senior blockchain developer is what, like, that you can't find like someone with 10 years of experience, right? Because it's so new. So we are sort of like pioneering, and I like that sound of that. So I was like, looks fun. Let's go and learn. Like, yeah.
And then how did you get on Solana so fast? Like, why Solana? Why not another blockchain?
Personally, I was interested in Rust first, and Rust being a general purpose language, it means that Rust is not limited to Web3. You can use Rust to build Web2, backend server. So I was attracted to Rust first, and then Solana being the largest network that uses Rust, sort of like, okay. Yeah.
Are you happy with your decision?
I love it. Yeah, I love coding in Rust. It's really fun. It's challenging. Honestly, I've not learned Solidity. I should. So that might be the next thing I'll pick up.
Okay. It looks like we have a question, and I guess either of you can answer this. Can blockchains be interconnected?
I think it depends on the ecosystem. I think there's certain ecosystem like Cosmos. They're trying to allow different blockchains to be more interconnected from the grounds up. There's also but there are other solutions around trying to enable transfers between different blockchains like ETH and Bitcoin as well. So definitely there's some solutions out there. I don't know how popular they are though. So as in everything else in this space, do your own research.
Okay. Gilbert, as a Web3 founder, can you tell us what the journey is like in terms of raising money? How do you think about raising money from like an ICO, IDO process versus from venture capital firms, and then just building a company by recruiting?
Yeah, so I think 6 months ago, fundraising was probably much easier than it is today.
Yeah.
And there's a huge amount of interest from from just about everyone. So, but I think your question around ICO, IDO, from what we see, I think typically you probably want to raise money through an IDO when you're a little bit further in the process, when you actually have a large community that is willing to invest in you, and you also have a product that hopefully you can keep some kind of promise around, because there are some projects out there that they promise that their token is going to be about, X, but then they raise some amount of money, realize that actually X doesn't have product market fit, and now you're kind of stuck on you're kind of stuck. Like, do you abandon the project and then lose all your supporters and lose all the people who invested in you? Like, it's much harder to, I think, change course from there. But I think for us right now in the early stage, it's probably a little bit easier to fundraise through traditional angels and VCs. And even in the bear market, I think there is a lot of capital that's already kind of earmarked for Web3.
Yeah.
So as long as there's a project and there's a team that's showing sufficient promise, there's probably no lack of capital out there. Maybe just the terms are a little bit different from they were 6 months ago.
And how are you trying to build the team? Are you trying to build like a decentralized team where people sit in different locations, or are you trying to get people as close to you as possible?
I mentioned that I ran a different startup before, and most of my team today is from the previous startup, and
Oh, wow.
we happen to be completely remote. We have half the team here in Singapore, some folks in Canada, and some folks in the US. I think different people have different takes on it, but one interesting aspect about Web3 is that it is very, very decentralized from a location perspective. I have met folks from Paris, from Colombia, from Tokyo. So while I don't think you have to have a decentralized team, I do think that there's some value to thinking through how you can take advantage of the ecosystem being more distributed globally.
Okay, and you said your team is primarily your previous startup team?
Yes. Sorry. Okay. What's the question?
So
yeah. I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So the question's about so I imagine a lot of people in the audience have roles in Web 2. What kind of Web 2 roles carry over really well in Web 3? I mean, I guess developers would be one, but are there any others?
I mean, I think the traditional product management, UX developer, they all carry over very well. I think the more newer, more prominent roles are probably around community management. And I think increasingly, I've heard that people talk a lot about tokenomics and not really, and trying to figure out how to design their token system. I don't think there's a term for that role yet, but I suspect we'll start seeing some kind of tokenomics consultant or something like that prop up soon enough.
And how have you thought about these problems with tokenomics?
I would say we've been procrastinating a little bit, in the sense that we see tokenomics more as a growth strategy. And so we want to find product market fit first, make sure that our product has a strong kind of foundation on user needs. And then from there, we can think more about how we can launch a token to either gather capital or gather just a lot more attention and support from the community.
Okay, and can you give us a sense of what's hard about tokenomics from a founder's perspective?
I think the best example is probably I'll bring in maybe some GameFi into this, right? So if you look at a lot of the Web3 games today, tokenomics is at the center of their game, right? You look at Axie Infinity, the moment you start playing, people think about how to earn AXS and how much potion they're getting for each fight. And that kind of runs directly in conflict with some of the game design mechanics itself. So maybe more specifically, perhaps the game itself is already fun enough, but because there's some money involved and because the tokenomics aspect is not very balanced, now maybe the game is not so fun, right? And so it's very hard to, at least right now, it seems like it will be very challenging to get both of those things right, the in-game experience along with the tokenomics. And so it's kind of going to be an ongoing challenge, I think. And the same is going to be true for other products as well outside of gaming. Right? How do you, it's hard enough to find a product that satisfies user needs, and then to have to think about the incentives and the around money, around tokens and things like that, and how people might respond at different life cycles of your product. That can turn pretty difficult quickly.
Right. So a tokenomics or a game economist position is probably something we'll see more of in the future.
I think so. I think Axie Infinity already probably internally has these positions, but probably more and more we'll see them becoming more popular and important.
Yeah, this is actually a strong interest of mine in Vietnam, because we have over 200 GameFi companies cloned or closely modeled after Axie Infinity, and all of them are creating their own economies, and this is something that I'm very personally interested in. Gilbert, you've got a question from Steve about recruiting people in a decentralized way.
Oh, let's see. So I think the question is around where did I advertise these roles? Dealing with local labor regulations. I don't know about a strong answer to local labor regulations. To be honest, I think we were kidding last week that I'm pretty sure, I don't think we satisfy every single little regulation out there around labor. But that is part of running a startup, is that these things you need to negotiate with your teammates and figure out what makes sense for everyone. In terms of advertising, I think in the past there was a lot of when I talked to my teammates, there was a lot of cold outreach. Actually, there was a lot of kind of recommendations from friends. I have also gotten some good inbounds from advertising on Web3 media like Bankless, but there's just no silver bullet, unfortunately. There's just a lot of hiring channels. None of them are going to be that great, and you just kind of have to like really, really grind hard until you find somebody that's a good fit.
Right. Let me pivot back to Justin. Hey, Justin, we were talking about game economics here, but one area that I'm really interested in is DeFi, and it sounds like you're deep into it.
Yeah, I guess so. But to be honest, I just joined the company as well, so my understanding might not be as fast as Gilbert over here.
Well, you said your startup is doing staking and liquidity pools.
Yeah. So maybe one interesting thing about is in things that you can do on Solana that is not possible on potentially some other chain is doing things like what HawkLabs is doing, where we are able to do multiple transactions for a very small amount of fee, right? Let's say you can stake like $5, and this set of instruction, this call require up to 5 different transactions. In Solana, the gas fee or the transaction fee is probably like less than 1 cent. But if you were to do this on Ethereum, it's not really possible unless you're trading like over millions of dollars, and then a couple hundred of transaction fee doesn't really make sense. It's fine. But yeah, so I think that's one thing that's really interesting about what you can do on Solana right now.
And are you personally following a lot of DeFi projects?
Honestly, no, not really.
Okay, and then what about the wider crypto market? Like, when we see headlines about Celsius, and the Anchor Protocol and Terra Luna, like,
Okay.
does this affect your day-to-day work?
No, not really. So personally, what I really like about what HawkSite is doing is that everything's non-custodian. So what we do is in Solana, we got something called PDA or program derived address, where what that means is only the user, let's say if you decided to stake on this platform, only you have the rights to move the fund forward.
Right.
Okay, even I can do it, even though even HawkSite themselves, we can't do it. So it's quite interesting structure that we have at HawkSite. So you won't have a situation where our fund isn't collected in one space at one space. So you won't have a situation like be it Celsius or yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned non-custodial. Can you explain this to people in the audience who might not know?
So instead of someone having control over a fund or like well, how do I explain non-custodian? If a fund is being controlled by a middleman, like yeah.
Right. So HawkSite doesn't actually
No, we don't control anything. We don't have we don't control anything. We just provide the service like the smart contract itself, but we don't have rights over your accounts,
Okay, and then when you were looking for roles, were you looking at startups and Web3, or you were very set on Web3?
I was pretty set on Web3, so specifically on the Solana network, because honestly, I only know Solana, so that wasn't really an option, right? So, yeah, I was quite driven to get a job at Web3. So maybe I can share like how I got the job. Is I was pretty active in the community. I was quite a vocal guy, and I like to go to networking event. I talk to founders. I talk to the founders of HawkSite. I started a meetup event where I invite founders, Solana founders, to come down and give a talk to share about their projects. So just keeping them in the loop, constantly being out there. So I think one key thing about getting a job, it might not, how good you are is important, right? You must know how to code and all, but it's also important to be out there and getting your name out, like a personal brand.
And you said you were hosting these founders. Did any of the founders or their projects stand out?
Yes, quite a few. Actually, one project I really like is Solana FM. So they are not exactly a blockchain. They don't really have smart contract and all, but what they do is they are an explorer. So you can think about eScan. They are their UI. They make everything really it's amazing. So this is one thing that I was quite impressed by.
So sorry, can you say more? Is it analytics for Solana?
No, it's basically an explorer.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like this. I don't know if you've heard of SoulScan. Is SoulScan similar? Okay.
Exactly.
Competitors?
It's just a competitor, yeah. But honestly, go and check that out. They are pretty sick UI and all. So I don't know, personally, I really like it.
Okay, and there's a question here about when you're looking at developers, what are you looking for?
I can take a stab. So I think just to mention this a little bit back too, Web3 is especially like Web3 is still really new, and there's just not many developers that know a lot about Web3. So it's unless whoever's hiring, unless we're looking for like an expert to audit a smart contract, it's I think it's rare that we would ask for specific Web3 experience. So really, it's more about looking for somebody who has some traditional programming skills and who is very interested in Web3 and is willing to learn and is willing to kind of dive deep into Web3 courses. And that's really what we would be looking for.
Is there a Web3 course you'd recommend?
I think actually Justin mentioned a few just now that I think we went through as well. I'm not sure. I actually don't think there's any one that is particularly great. It is like kind of a feature of this space right now where like everything is moving so quickly that you just kind of have to learn on the fly and kind of grab the best pieces from different tutorials and take what you need.
Okay, okay, so what about like a super skilled Web2 developer that is very new to Web3? How do you transition a person like that over?
So at least for us, I think we spent, well, because a lot of our team is not really Web3, has not spent a lot of time on Web3 either. So we spent half the time, you know, learning about the technical side of things. You know, I'm trying to dive into courses about blockchain, learning Solidity, learning about some of the newer stuff like how zero knowledge proofs work, and just trying to get a kind of a breadth of technical knowledge. But then the other half of it, which I think is equally important, is also trying to understand what people are getting excited around in the space. So reading blogs from A16Z, right? Obviously they're biased. They paint a very rosy picture, but at least you can get a sense of like what's the long-term vision here? Like, why are people getting so excited? What are they looking towards, right? And so I think a combination of those is how we try to move from Web 2 into Web 3.
Okay, and you mentioned Solidity, and I think Justin had mentioned that he's working in Rust. Have you had a chance to look at Rust? Because it seems like Solidity is most people do.
We looked a little bit at Solana and trying to see whether it might make sense for a project. I think at this point, really just pick one and go. You know, pick a direction and start learning. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's like a right way to go about this.
Okay, and you also mentioned zero knowledge proofs, and something that I've been hearing about is ZK rollups and optimistic. Is this a debate you could shed light on for us?
I wish I can, but I think the way I see it is that, you know, there's a lot of different competing approaches to making Ethereum more scalable, and then one approach, kind of one umbrella, involves zero knowledge proofs, and inside that umbrella there's different approaches as well. So, you know, our take is just that, okay, there's a lot of competing projects out there. Let's keep an eye on it and see how it plays out. Let's see what becomes more popular, and let's see where Ethereum goes in terms of like scaling and becoming more useful over time. Okay,
great. I see a question from Steve about GameFi in Vietnam, and while I have a little bit of time left, so GameFi is you know, this is the home of Axie Infinity, and I'm at a blockchain Congress event in Hanoi right now. Because of Axie Infinity, you know, there have been more than 200 play to earn games. You know, Axie is has these Pokemon-like creatures. So you'll see these games that will have, instead of Pokemon creatures, there'll be dogs, cats. There's even dragons. So, you know, I'm aware of at least 8 dragon Axie clones. And, you know, we're a cloud provider, and play to earn games are pretty reliable customers, because these are truly digital native businesses. And so something that we're seeing in Vietnam is the growth of the venture capital industry. So these VC-backed startups, but also the bigger story would be these crypto startups that are raising through ICO and IDOs. And Vietnam is usually a top 3 crypto adoption market, because you know, there are actually real pain points here that I think Gilbert and Justin had mentioned before. In an emerging market like Vietnam, there were a lot of people that were unbanked, you know, didn't have access to traditional financial institutions, and there are very strict capital controls. So, you know, one very simple use case is using stable coins to send money to family overseas. There's a question about the best layer 2. Any thoughts, guys, on this?
I haven't checked on the market cap recently and how much each L2 is processing, but I hear a lot of news about Polygon, and it seems like they have a pretty multifaceted approach. So seems like they're doing well.
Justin, there's a provocative question from Matthew about Solana's outages. Do you want to handle that?
Sure. So, well, recently there are a lot less, I think, because of recent update. So, so far we have honestly, before the upgrade, there was some issue, especially on testing when developing on Solana and Edward. So it is quite a pain in the ass, honestly. But after the upgrade, so far so good lah. So finger crossed. And well, it's still on beta as well. So yeah, I look forward to see once it's finally released.
So I have a thing to note here. I mentioned I have a lot of GameFi customers that I work with. And so one of their most common questions is what chain are you building on? And so far, most of the answers are Bitcoin, Binance, Solana, and Polygon. And so, one thing we dug into was getting insurance premiums in case your blockchain has an outage. And this is actually impossible to find for Solana because Solana is the home for most of the big crypto insurance protocols. So Solana seems to be really, really far ahead there. And you can, if you guys are interested, you guys can look up the insurance rates for the other blockchains. They're pretty interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. So Justin, it sounds like you're pretty. You think Solana is right now the best L2, or would you even consider it L1 or L2?
It's L1.
Can you help us make this distinction?
So L2 is usually a solution that's built on an existing chain. So Polygon is built on Solana. Polygon is built on Ethereum. Yeah, so that's like a layer 2 solution for the layer 1. So yeah, that's the difference between L1 and L2.
Okay, and I got the sense from Gilbert that decentralization was pretty important for him. How important is it for you?
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, I mean, yeah, it is very important. But if you were to compare in terms of decentralization, hands down, Ethereum is way ahead given the number of because they're that big, right? So yeah, in terms of decentralization and security wise, they are definitely way ahead compared to Solana.
Okay, and last question before we wrap up. Are there any questions? Is there any thoughts about the Ethereum 2.0, the merge? Are either of you following this?
I have to say I know very little about the details, and so I don't have much insight on the merge.
Justin?
Honestly, I don't really know much as well, but from my understanding, they're just shifting to proof of stake from proof of work. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a performance enhancement, but from what I heard is that it's still going to be pretty far off. But I will look into layer 2 solution, yeah, so such as a Polygon, if you are quite fixated on Ethereum.
Okay, I actually listened to a podcast about this recently with Tim Bako from the Ethereum Foundation on Bankless, and I think Gilbert had done some advertising on Bankless before. So they have a big summary of the things that can be expected post merge. It's an informative podcast, but I did not get the sense that the merge is going to be happening on schedule.
Yeah, I got the same. I mean, I think it's been delayed for quite a while, but it does seem like it's making progress. So,
okay, and there was a big question here about the growth of blockchains for day-to-day applications. What do you guys think will be the catalyst for mass adoption? Is where even your parents are using it and they don't even know about it.
I think payments. like if we can somehow make payments like so convenient, like how we usually just use GrabPay right now, that would be quite a for mass adoption. I think will be a key driver to
Gilbert?
I think the speed of the transactions and the cost of the transactions really need to come down, and general education or an improvement in UX around the space will also help significantly.
Okay, great. That's it from me. Elena, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, of course. So thank you, Dawn, for moderating the session, Gilbert and Justin for sharing your insights and stories. I think what I can tell from this discussion is that I think there are a lot of divergent views. Things are still very new, but I think the one central thing that I really caught is the passion, being passionate about building new things, being a pioneer seems to be one of the reasons why Gilbert and Justin, despite their different years of experience, is in this space. And I believe, the audience here as well, I hope you got that same passion and that same sense of pioneering, right? That these two individuals have. And sounds like there's still a lot more to learn. I mean, it's absolute Greek to me, but well, it doesn't matter. So, so if you, let me just share my screen for a bit before we head off. So I think if you guys are interested to connect with Justin, Gilbert, and Dawn, here are their Twitter and LinkedIn details. I will share this also on the Telegram chat. So yeah, no need to rush, but if you can just take down the picture or whatever of their details. Also, thanks for staying with us at Talent at Web3. We're very humbled by the growth since we launched 2 months ago. We have got 2 upcoming events. One is actually next week on Monday, where we're going to be talking about the current crypto market outlook and future trends. I think the speakers here alluded to parts of it, but we're going to deep dive a little bit with Thomas, Derek, and Samuel. All 3 of them are actually in the investment space in Web3. So it'll be interesting to hear their views. And then we have a in real life meetup on Thursday, the 28th in Singapore, obviously, from 7 to 9. We'll share more details as to where this is going to be. And there'll be a focus on builders, so it's and we'll be sharing more of that on Telegram. And then also for those who are new, scan the QR code to follow Talent at Web3 on Telegram and our socials. And I will also share that deck that Justin has shared also on the Telegram channel. So I think that's it from us tonight. And I really hope you enjoyed the session and got some insights, for you to ponder upon thanks again, Dawn, Gilbert, and Justin, and we'll see you again. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right. See y'all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.